I'm Ian Willoughby, and this is episode 12 of Czech Next Wave, a podcast produced jointly by the Czech Centres Network and Radio Prague International. Our guest in this edition is Jakub Gemrot, an academic at Charles University in Prague, whose studio Charles Games produced Attentat 1945. It's a World War II game through the eyes of survivors that won many admirers around the world a few years back. Now Jakub Gemrot and his team are preparing to return with a follow-up, Svoboda or Freedom 1945, which is due out later this year. We discuss all of that and much more now in this episode of Czech Next Wave. Tell us, Jakub, about your own introduction to gaming. You're now in your late 30s, so I guess you probably started playing in the late 90s or something like that?
Exactly. It probably started pretty early because I was kind of blessed as I have two older brothers, and my parents decided to buy one of the early 8-bit computer, like Spectrum, for my brother, who was into electronics a lot. So that's where I first met computer games, naturally. That's why I kind of learned how to load games from cassette on my own, because parents weren't always around. So that was the impulse to actually execute the first line of code. You're supposed to type load and double quotes and start loading the thing, and then pray because the medium wasn't great. Then of course PCs and stuff, Doom era, first RTS, Dune 2, great game.
Also, I guess at that time the internet became more available to everybody.
Exactly, the internet came in around 1998. For me, and we were playing a lot of StarCraft over the internet and Battle.net. We made even new friends we haven't made otherwise. So we connected to other local players, and we kind of formed a clan and then gathered and to throw first LAN parties. So I was always into games and gaming. And then later on, it kind of evolved as one of my supervisor in university. As a single person offered something in context of gaming, and that was the gaming AI. And I thought back then, that's really, really cool. That's something I would really like to get into. So I tried creating behaviors for Unreal Tournament back then. And we're actually still using the platform we have created. So our students are using it to learn how to code behaviors for first-person shooters, and then continuing to other stuff.
Do you still play shooting games, these shoot-'em-up games, or is it something that you grow out of as you get a bit older?
I have a theory. It's probably not something I should really tell. I don't have experience with drugs, but it's something like addiction or something like trying something new and exciting, and games are exciting. And if you haven't ever played and you get to it, it can be really addictive. But as you playing more and more, you're realizing that new games which are coming out are really very similar to previous ones in terms of gameplay, game mechanics. So it's usually just having a new graphics and some story which is not well developed in first-person shooters. I stopped playing those games a long time ago, actually. I'm still into tactical games, strategic games, either turn-based or real-time, but I don't have much time. Even though recently I've started playing Stellaris from Paradox Interactive, very interesting game. It's really strategic, but it requires immense amount of time, so I'm progressing slowly.
And when you design games, when you program games, are you trying to make them addictive yourself for the user?
I wouldn't say addictive, because that has a bad connotation to it. It's not about addiction, but it's definitely about fun. And fun, I think, is addictive. Everybody probably like to have fun in their lives. So yeah, the game definitely must be fun to play, or must have something interesting for the player, because fun is just one word, but it means totally different thing to different persons. So that's always about finding what the fun in the context of the game you create is. Recently, I'm really much more into well-developed stories. Basically, the story which somehow blends with a good game mechanic, which might be a contradiction because I'm not sure whether Attentat really fit in this schema. Is more a documentary game, let's say, but still, like dialogues are intriguing and stuff. But I think we will get to that.
Pak dědu odvedli a já jsem si nikdy nemyslel, že ho uvidím až po válce.
Proč vašeho dědu zatkli, to jsme se vlastně nikdy nedopátrali.
Well, yes, indeed. I wanted to ask you about Attentat 1942, through which you came to broader attention when your Charles Games, which is affiliated with Charles University, had a huge success with this game, Attentat 1942. It's related to events in Bohemia and Moravia during World War II. How did that game come about?
Yeah, it's definitely not my creation. I haven't even started it. It goes back to 2011-12 when I was recruited to become a lead programmer for a project which was called Czechoslovakia 3889 stories from Czechoslovakia. And there we have been developing these variant games, but educational applications for high schools, which contain gameplay-like-ish elements, let's say. And there we have created a material for Attentat 1942. And after that project ended, people gathered and spoke about it, that it would be a pity just to leave it in the context of Czech and Slovak Republic, maybe, and that we would like to reach wider audience with this thing. So we decided to start working on the game Attentat 1942 to put it into more the part of the games and more interactive stuff, like coherently sequence the material so it can be digested as a longer story. And yeah, that was something 2015. At that time, we have created the first version for the Czech and Slovak market, which was released for the Christmas.
You're a programmer from the Faculty of Mathematics and Physics. You're working on Attentat 1942 with historians. I presume they had quite a different approach maybe to everything from you. How did that communication work with historians who I guess are really focused on getting every fact absolutely correct?
Yeah, absolutely correct on this one. And that's actually a great, when Vítek Schisler, the lead designer and further other project, assembled the team, he definitely brought historians to it. And they were given large space in the game development process. So they were really incorporated. Some of them were even writing some dialogues and text. They also oversee the production of art, so they have been commenting on the comics we have in the game, pointing out things which couldn't have been there because of the time period. It was quite interesting, and that's actually why I like to work in gaming in general, because you're meeting a lot of other people who have a completely different point of view on things. And that's a great thing because it moves the product further. It makes it better if you listen to those people, of course, because they have their expertise. Because we had historians on board that made the game more authentic, and we were very grateful for that. And that's probably also why it was picked up by juries of different festivals and expos we have sent Attentat to.
And I presume also you yourself personally must have learned a lot about that period in Czech history from working on that project. Did it change in any way how you looked at things or that period of history?
Definitely it changed because there is an interesting character in the game which can be labeled as collaborator, because at that time he was working for newspapers and he was writing articles which must have been aligned with the propaganda. But he's making an interesting case for himself. He says, I was in my productive age and Nazis came. And if I refused to cooperate with them, maybe they might have sent me to concentration camps. I don't know. So, of course, I was afraid. And that really struck me, because that could happen to anyone. He was solving basically life and death questions without not much information how to base this decision on. So that kind of changed my perception on things, that truth is always complex.
Your team is now working on a new game called Svoboda, or Freedom 1945. It's a kind of follow-up to the earlier one. But I'm wondering, how does it compare? I presume you and your team learned a lot from working on and producing the earlier game and maybe improved some things.
Yeah, definitely. The format will be very similar, but we're stressing the more interactive parts a lot, trying to put more meaningful minigames into this format, even like embedding things like small economic minigame. Although we're making sure to stick to what we think is fun, and these are information about that period and showing lives of people under those times. So it's still highly connected to the age and all the problems which were happening there. I would say the story is more developed, is not that direct, let's say, as in Attentat, because in Attentat, yes, Second World War, it's clear who the bad guys are, what the good guys should be doing, so you can anticipate a lot. But after the World War, things are not that black and white at all, and it's still alive in the discourse, even here in Czech Republic. So the story is more mature, definitely.
Svoboda 1945 goes up to 1948, I understand, when the communists came to power in Czechoslovakia, which means you're getting into a kind of political area that has resonance today. Did you feel the need to tread very carefully when you were referencing the communist takeover?
Not specifically about communism. We're trying to take every reference to anything very seriously, since we had the historians on board and we had the research on that. And it's not only about communism, but also expulsion of Sudeten Germans. All of that is a very sensitive topic, but it's not like we are afraid of that when we are creating that. It's just, it will definitely be viewed to some as maybe unjust because they have their views. We will probably, with some things, we will be challenging views of other people. Not sure if the looking forward is a good phrase to use, but we think people will be commenting on Svoboda here in Czech Republic more than Attentat because of the period we're working with in that game.
And is it the case that Charles Games is already working on a kind of follow-up to Svoboda 1945? A kind of third part of a trilogy called Exile, at least I found this online, Exile 1968.
Yeah, we would like to eventually do that game, but we are not working on this one actively right now.
You are focused also on artificial intelligence. How much does that feed into your work on games?
With respect to Attentat and Svoboda, there is no crosstalk, I'd say. There are artificial intelligence in there. With respect to my academic career, I'm working on the way how to create behaviors for non-player characters. So all those human-like avatars, or even animal-like avatars who are running in the environment and making the background for scenes and trying to make the virtual world alive. That's what I'm doing at the university. That's what I'm basically interested in, because there are a lot of games around. The graphic fidelity is high, but the same cannot be said to behaviors. Usually everything is still prescripted and still hard to make some general behaviors which could be plugged into games. There was an interesting discussion about whether you could have something like Photoshop of artificial intelligence for games. And people think that no, that it's not possible. I think it might be possible, but there's a long way to go.
The games industry in the Czech Republic seems to be quite big, and I'm always reading that it's bigger than the film industry. But unlike the movie business, most people in games aren't recognizable to anybody on the street. They're kind of anonymous. Do people in gaming like to be kind of under the radar and not to be visible? Because it really is a huge business.
I think it's because of the history of gaming industry as a general. Usually companies were not putting the names of creators on their shelves. There are definitely exceptions, like Miyamoto from Nintendo, working on Super Mario. So they are iconic names in gaming, but there are only a few. Games are really product of so many people that it's hard to pick a single person out of the crowd. Of course, there are lead designers and stuff, but I don't want to be unfair, but I think with games it's even more complex than with movies, because the technical part and developing the engine and all the tools you need for creation of the game is tremendous, and the designer wouldn't be able to create the game without his team. So yeah, it's like symbiosis of people working on the same title.
Do you at Charles Games, or more broadly at Charles University, do you have much interaction with the commercial gaming world here in the Czech Republic?
Partially thanks to the game development program specialization we're running at the university. I have been making contact with other local developers. So we kind of know each other, and they know that we have Charles Games that are trying to make serious games. Of course, that's something which is a bit frowned upon, because it's hard to market those things and make a living out of that. Of course, money are elsewhere than the serious gaming. Yeah, we know of each other, but it's not like we are collaborating strongly. Just we meet at similar festivals, I suppose.
And would you ever consider leaving the academic sphere to enter the, I guess, far more lucrative world of commercial gaming?
I don't like the idea to enter a big company and work there on a big title. I try to work for some software developers who are producing applications for telecommunications and banking sector, and I concluded this it's not for me to make a big team. So I like indie way, and I'm trying to see the Charles Games as something which complement my duties and my career in the academy, because I'm teaching a lot. I enjoy teaching, and students are coming to the game dev specialization. They're naturally asking, what are we going to do after that? So there are two roads in there. Either you will enter some company, get to some well-established studio, or you will try to develop your own games, and that's something some people are successful in on the West, around Copenhagen, around their ITU. Quite large number of indie studios were made because they are having very successful game development program running there. So I'm trying to offer both ways to our students, and that's why I need some first-hand experience with the business, so I can guide them better. So again, it's symbiosis of things, and I'm trying to balance both of those sides.
My final question, Jakub, is you're 37. Do you ever feel that someday you'll be too old for games?
Well, I feel that I'm quite old for very fast-paced games, like multiplayer online battle arenas or the battle royales. My aim is not as good as like 15 years ago. So maybe I'm getting old to that, but I don't think I will ever be old to the gaming as a medium. There will always be games I will find this interesting, because there are so many titles and genres, and people on the indie scene are exploring various things which I already have a long list to try and play. So no, I don't think I will be old for this.
My guest in episode 12 of Czech Next Wave has been academic and Charles Games studio chief Jakub Gemrot. And I must say it'll be fascinating to see how the new game Svoboda 1945 is actually received when it's released later this year. Czech Next Wave is produced by Radio Prague International and the Czech Centrist Network, and it's all about introducing listeners around the planet to talented young Czechs. Our theme music is by one such talent, the keyboard sensation Andrej Pivec. This has been episode 12 of Czech Next Wave, so there are of course plenty more episodes where this one came from. Why not give some of them a go, and of course subscribe on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you get your podcasts. That's all for now. From me, Ian Willoughby, thank you very much indeed for listening, and speak to you again very soon.